Well, good morning. This is Leroy McFall here in my home studio in Huntsville, Alabama. It is 22 May. Here it is still 2021 and we're still suffering from the consequences of COVID-19. However, we're not going to talk about music today. We're going to talk a little bit about the law. Law can be a drawn out and boring subject. It was for me at one time. So let's take a look at some of the law that we're going to make an issue of today. Yes, sometimes I look in these law books and try to figure out where we go and what we do in this country. And I have found, in fact, I discovered during a required law class that I had to take when I was appointed a judge out in Tombstone, Arizona, that there was a thing called Blackstone's Commentaries. This is Sir William Blackstone, England, that had written these commentaries in the early 1700s that become pretty much the law in England, at least the recognized law. They hadn't had a good solid law before Blackstone, and with that, many of our founding fathers, in fact all of our founding fathers, used Blackstone as their foundation of the law when they attempted to write up a constitution for a new country, our country, the United States of America. Blackstone's laws can be somewhat boring, a boring study, and I've noticed most of the writings or a lot of the YouTubes that's put on that talks about Blackstone's commentaries is done by very boring people. People that talk in a monotone voice and don't express themselves with anything, and professors that seem to talk to the point you can't understand what they're saying. But his commentaries is very interesting and very enlightening when you're studying the law or trying to figure out exactly the original intent of our founding fathers, of our American Constitution. They were the basis of a lot of their laws. There was two books that were probably the most important in their foundation was the Bible and Blackstone's commentaries. Blackstone commentaries give them the civil law to go by. In fact, in the introduction in section 2, Blackstone talks about a notion called law of nature and nature's God. Law of nature was simply God's laws that is natural to a person to have rights such as the right to life. Of course, in our preamble of the Declaration of Independence, it talks about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That is a law of nature. Everybody is desiring that. Whether they act like it or look like it, or, you know, people that seem to be self-destructive, their basic natural born instinct was a law of self-happiness, liberty. They wanted justice. They wanted to be treated fairly. Everybody wants that. And that's what his section 2 had talked about as God's laws. The laws that God gives you when you're born, such as breathing the air, eating. All those laws that we don't look at, we just look at it as nature. Animals do it, people do it. But then they, as man studied this, such as Blackstone, he come up with a term that sometimes people don't recognize these terms in the Constitution, and they don't realize how important the Constitution is. But the term is called nature's God. Well, it was determined that the law of nature can be self-destructive, such as animals. They eat each other, they fight, and they do things that God didn't intend for the human being to do. So we call it the law of nature, nature's God. That presents God had certain equalities that in distinct nature items such as civilization that we must abide by being civilized humans. So let's go ahead into this a little bit further. I am a believer that everybody should read the Constitution. It's considered as the foundations of freedom, which is a number of the documents, such as starting with the Declaration of Independence. If you don't understand what the founding fathers were declaring to King George III, then you will never understand the Constitution, because the Constitution was designed to rectify the injuries that King George was doing on the colonials. And it's important to know exactly what was their original intent. This is a very fine book for a quick study of common sense, the basic foundation of freedoms, and the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and also many of the other commentaries that the Americans made besides Blackstone. Blackstone's not in this book here. He's not in this book. However, Blackstone's commentaries is very lengthy, and even though I had studied Blackstone's comments, I have never read through all of them. Basically, through the law of nature, which was very important to the founding fathers to use those principles, the high morals and principles that come out of that law of nature, to give a good solid foundation to America, to the new country that they were designing, to the new country's rule, and to last forever. That the Constitution couldn't be changed because it is rectifying and bringing out the need to instill the supreme law as nature's God's laws. Now, in respect to the Declaration of Independence, I have done much study on that, and I divide the Declaration of Independence into 4 parts. You got your preamble, or your introduction. Then you got the body. The body is the list of grievances that they are listing to send to King George, to say, here's why we're making resolution to separate our being from England. And then, of course, you got the conclusion, and then one other section is on the signatures. And that is just simply to show you by state what people actually signed the Declaration of Independence. Very important factor is that you see what states was the strongest in support of doing this new Constitution, the separation from England. Well, here we are. We've come to the end of my little briefing, and I hope you enjoyed the little briefing. I hope it was interesting enough. Maybe not to me, maybe I should have played music, but interesting enough that you might look into it a little bit further. Take some hints. Learn that Declaration of Independence. Read that. Read it many times. It's easy reading. And then you'll be able to go to the Constitution and really be able to figure out what fits in there that your representative, my representative, our representative is talking about. And let's make sure those representatives go and do their jobs in that Congress, in our Congress, so this world, hopefully we can pray for a better world. Thank you for watching.